Sonic the Hedgehog. He's had a lot of positive press as of late, hasn't he? Well, aside from the year of Shadow driving up my blood pressure for months on end, if I've suddenly pivoted from my affinity for Mario games, then the blue blur must be doing something right. I mean, let's be real. You already know when Mario's the subject, it's going to be a winner 95% of the time, but that's the kicker. Talking about Sonic games is inherently more interesting because of the wild history surrounding the quality of his game library mimicking one of his old giant loops. Would you believe there was a time when we all thought the Speed Demon had used up his last continue? Transport yourself back to 2006, when the Dreamcast had already proven to be a failure, and a spin-off game centered around Sonic's edgy younger brother further alienated anyone who simply tried to pick it up. Nope. Only if they win a title. Sega and Sonic Team had to strike gold with Sonic 06, both to make the triumphant leap to the next generation of video game hardware and to coincide with the 15th anniversary of the Mega Drive Classic. By the way, this is a Platinum Family hit. This is a bad game. I don't need to make a half-hour CinemaSins parody for you to understand that, although I could put together a montage of all the time I spent sitting through these loading screens and it would just as strongly prove my point. So about 3 years ago, I got the chance to play through Sonic 06 and experience firsthand the unpolished mess that plagued the internet in those days. In hindsight, I was probably way too late to that party. My version of shattered trust and heightened anxiety over the future of the franchise was Sonic Forces, which is absolutely an improvement over 06 in almost every way, but still managed to leave the taste of dirty dishwasher in my mouth. I'll never forget how it hyped up a truly epic adventure with an interesting boss rush and a new villain said to be more powerful than anything Sonic and friends had ever faced before. It's like scarfing down a New York-style pizza only to find out you're on To Catch a Predator.
What kind of pizza we have tonight?
I didn't have an issue with either the level design or how consistently short the stages were. It was my first Sonic game, and I was very fine with the levels ending rather quickly, both to escape the loads of hazards at every turn and to progress the story. I am still regretting that latter part to this very day. I could wax poetic about everything that ruined my experience with Sonic Forces, but that would brush aside the point of this video. I'm not going to try to discredit any anguish you may have felt after playing 06, but at least that game didn't introduce a new bad guy with actual unlimited power only to give him an underwhelming backstory, turn him into a literal pushover, and allow him to evolve into a meme. I can never listen to his theme song the same way again. Seriously, I get PTSD every time I hear the words face, worthless, mask, phantom, challenger, friendship, and consume. And yet I don't get any horrifying flashbacks when I think back to Sonic's rushed attempt at a reboot in 2006. I mean, I did get a game over once and lost a bit of progress because I forgot to save, but that's about it. When it comes to everything I could loathe about this game, either I was made aware of them long before I took the game on, or I thought all your complaints were somewhat overblown. So that's why I thought it would be more interesting to recount a short list of things I actually enjoyed about the 2006 installment in the Sonic the Hedgehog platformer series. You might want to strap yourself in for this one. It's gonna be a ride.
Here we go!
One major sticking point that ties the elaborate story together is that the new guy, Silver, is from a really bad future, hence why we see him right away dead set on eliminating the Iblis trigger. Now I know Sonic CD previously dabbled into the concept of manipulating past events to create different future timelines, and I imagine we'll see some of that in the fourth Sonic movie as well, but it's understandably difficult to make a good story that hinges on time travel, potentially leaving who knows how many loose ends untied. I know some of you rag on Sonic Team because you noticed little details that didn't quite add up, but hey, A for effort, right? Also, they probably time traveled to retroactively make this game canon, but that's none of my business. What do you get when two mo-capped hedgehogs accidentally create a time portal by using chaos control on each other, a gross realistic looking egghead as a machine for zapping his little rodents into next week, and there's a sun deity that precariously holds the entire space-time continuum together? Honestly, the end result is a series of hedgehog hijinks that come together to make this game the legend that it is today, for better or worse. Why does Sonic wait to rescue Elise the first time? How is he consistently too slow every time she disappears? How does Silver have zero reservations about Mephiles' intentions? He gave Elise his Chaos Emerald, so why does he still have it when returning? Wasn't Shadow in the middle of his 50-year sleep when he supposedly sealed away Mephiles the first time? Why doesn't he think to use time travel to save Maria? On that note, couldn't Mephiles do the same thing to fuse back with Iblis? And if he no longer exists, why is Soliana still holding Sun Festivals? No matter how many questions pop up out of nowhere like those black hole type riffs in the last episode, I do like that Sonic 06 took a chance with such a mercurial concept, and I hope they revisit it in a future game, particularly to fix the glitch that is Sonic Forces. As for the 15th anniversary spectacular, I bet if anyone who's ever played it had the power to travel through time, they use it to do something about the ungodly number of loading screens they had to sit through. I remember I used to sporadically play the PS2 version of Sonic Unleashed, which certainly had me waiting on this loading screen for about 15 seconds at a time. obviously par for the course given the inferior hardware. It becomes quite painful when you have to spend about 1/5 of your playthrough of Sonic's time-traveling escapade waiting on a bland-looking screenshot, if anything. It's especially heinous that it tries to get in the way of those notorious cutscenes, which I probably enjoy more than playing the game itself. At least you can watch them anytime on your phone nowadays. Now if you think back to the cutscenes of Sonic 06 and have the image of Mephiles moving around in an unsettling manner or everyone else's mouth being a little off, then you have my condolences, because there's a small batch of pre-rendered CGI scenes that look very much like what I would expect to see in a Sonic game these days, like the spoiled little brat I am. When I look at Sonic holding out his one index finger at the beginning of the game, I get a stark sense of satisfaction. There's just an indescribable beauty with how smooth this CGI animation is. Same thing with Shadow and Rouge going all stealth mode on their gun mission, or even Silver simply navigating a future in ruins. I feel like I'm watching an action movie, with the ominous music track laid underneath the unfolding drama. It's kind of a shame that more cutscenes don't share this cinematic quality. I've heard some of you desperate fanboys speculate that this is where most of the budget went, but I hardly believe the developers blew that much money to make a few short movies. Well, I guess the game is going on 19 years old now. Maybe mocap was just that much cheaper to implement in that day. Whatever the case, it's nice to see a healthy sized roster looking as slick as ever, thank you very much, Next Gen. It's also really neat to play as a wide variety of characters, each with their unique style of gameplay, all bringing something to the table in terms of story. I've always been a fan of the large character list from the Sonic games, but I've noticed that after Sonic 06, they've all taken a huge step back from relevance, which is kinda jarring. Through the last 19 years worth of mainline games, about 98% of gameplay is spent controlling the titular Cobalt pincushion. And I don't count Shadow cleaning up after Sonic's mess in Forces, or his three main friends getting their own playable arcs in Frontier's free update a year after its initial launch. I don't think Sonic should be the only star of the show here, especially when Silver and Shadow each provide fresh takes on going at ridiculously fast speeds. And as luck would have it, they indeed have playable stories akin to Team Hero and Team Dark in the Adventure series. It's not entirely about seeing the game through different perspectives. The gameplay part of Silver's story revolves around his psychokinetic abilities, which have a very welcome puzzle element to them. Also, who doesn't like to actually fly for a few seconds? He also shows some nice character development. Yeah, he kinda picks an unfair fight with Sonic towards the beginning, but once you dig deeper into his story, you'll watch him open a can of worms with Shadow as he learns what's really going on and circumstances change.
It's no use!
What about when Robotnik banishes Sonic and company to that desolate timeline and he runs into Slim Shady and the Batgirl? You wouldn't know how Team Dark got into this pickle too, but wait, yes you would once you start playing through Shadow's story. I kinda wish future games would put an emphasis on elaborate story building that causes the paths of multiple subjects to intertwine, at least give us an idea of what the other guy is thinking. I've been trying to think of a good way to rewrite Forces in this manner. Infinite would probably need a totally revamped background, but once I've managed that, he becomes a great candidate for getting his own playable story apart from Sonic and Gary Sue the Hedgehog. Then I could take the Phantom Lord's existing fights between the other playable subjects and spin them in a way that fits his narrative. You remember that nightmare fuel of Silver possibly soft-locking Sonic in place if he ever moved the wrong way, right? Well, Sil of the Future has his own version of this same battle that has Son the Hedge jump-scaring him out of nowhere.
Here I come!
When Sonic is the bad guy, it really makes you think, doesn't it? I really enjoy the many boss battles you take on across Sonic 06. This game got it right, setting you in an enclosed arena and leaving you to fend for yourself. It makes for an actual tense moment in the story instead of running nonstop and simply boosting to deal damage. That's not very fun to me. Yeah, you might struggle to figure out how to handle a giant robotic dog creature running towards you at every angle, and you might go bananas trying to get the camera to behave for you, but isn't the point of a big bad meanie to threaten to impede your progress? What about Silver? He's certainly feeling quite a bit of tension from Iblis shooting endless amounts of fireballs at him, and there's no guarantee he's strong enough to throw him right back. And Shadow's gotta feel somewhat helpless when he realizes he's got a truly infinite Mephistophelian swarm ganging up on him. You're pretty much forced to watch your step while Shiny Darkrai over here is hurling everything he has at you, and I'm all for it. Thought you could take your time here? Yeah, well, that's cute. Time waits for no hedgehog. And don't forget, this was in 2006, so you gotta deal with the life system as well. I never really agreed with the more recent games nerfing game overs. I see that move as a symptom of those newer experiences putting too much of an emphasis on gameplay. It's getting in the way of everything else that goes together to make a game great, or in this case, at least make it worthy of the collection.
I don't mean this collection. I mean the collection.
Yes, it is kind of funny that Sonic 06 is the antithesis of that vision the modern games go for. I'm not going to complain too much about it because, again, it's not like this game ruined my life. I know a lot of you have awful memories of Silver being absolutely unfair to our titular blue hero, which is kind of a drag because I found the futuristic psychic's bout with the ultimate lifeform to be more challenging and especially more interesting. I know the game title is supposed to be Sonic the Hedgehog in all caps, but let's be real, Shadow and Silver are the true stars of the show. And it goes well beyond playing the game through different lenses. For one thing, the two hedgehogs not named Sonic have pretty much all the relevance to the intergalactic continental champ running things. They're the ones with all the insider info on Mephiles, Iblis, the Flames of Disaster, and that incident. Wait, I'm sorry, that incident.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
It kinda makes me wish Sonic was doing more than battling Robotnik again or doing his best Mario impression with his princess constantly being in another castle. I also had a much better time playing through the main stages in Silver and Shadows campaigns. Since I'm still somewhat new to the Sonic games, I can never fully take advantage of the Blue Devil's penchant for going fast because I almost always run into something that takes me from Mach speed to 0 just like that, instantly negating the point of blast processing. At least the Ultimate Lifeform is combat-oriented enough to put a nerf on his skating speed, rivaling the fastest thing alive, but going through Silver's story, I felt like I was playing a different game entirely. His psychokinetic abilities are super fun to use. This is probably the only time I've been eager to finish a Sonic game from its gameplay providing a fun and somewhat fair challenge. I even beat the infamous ball puzzle on my first try. And of course I later learned how to glitch right past that dusty nightmare. Skill issue. But by far the biggest benefit to Shadow and Silver in this game is this part. And this part. I'm pretty sure this is the most hard-hitting Shadow's ever been. This is a guy that takes no prisoners, the optimal characterization of the ultimate life form. And for what it's worth, Silver is strong enough to get back on his feet after taking such an iconic beatdown and hang with the best of them. I certainly can't blame him for feeling a little rattled after taking that hit. I know I had my mettle tested for most of this playthrough. It sure didn't help that I had to do a good chunk of Silver's story all over again because the first time I'd forgotten to press record. I guess the replayability is another thing that's lacking here because I was getting rather worn out by the end of it all. You might be asking how I had the patience to sit through this unpolished mess, especially since I was still reeling from the uninspired disaster that is Sonic Forces. Indeed, long before anxiety infiltrated my own inner machinations, I used to dabble very sparingly into other games throughout Sonic's history. I actually started with the PS2 version of Sonic Unleashed, and I think I actually got pretty far but couldn't reach the final boss. I played 1 or 2 levels of Sonic Colors but dropped it entirely, and the same thing happened with Sonic Adventure 2. You might have seen me rage quit trying to play Shadow the Hedgehog, mostly because I was on PS2 again and it's Shadow the Hedgehog. Are you noticing a pattern here? I played through Sonic's all-caps rage on PS3, known to be even more miserable of an experience despite stewing in development for months longer. It runs so much worse and consistently fails to reach a target of 60 frames per second, and on certain cutscenes it doesn't even bother for no good reason. Also, it flips to the standard PS3 UI when you go to save your game. This game is almost certainly a beta version retrofitted for a worldwide release in time for Sonic's 15th birthday, and I have very little experience playing his catalog. There is no reasonable way I should have made it to the final boss. And yet, I beat the game anyway. I survived Son of a Glitch, the video game, on the objectively worst platform after having sat through all those loading screens, after having been broken once already, and I'm here with plenty of reasons to look back fondly on this experience, so you can too. Get up on my level. Okay, so as I've been writing down all these jumbled thoughts, I've really thought I could compare Sonic 06 to Super Mario Sunshine, seeing how the sun-drenched GameCube title is kinda seen as the black sheep of Mario platformers. I've since realized that might not be the right comparison to make, as Sunshine in my experience is super fun to control and is actually 99% functional up until Corona Mountain. Yes, I said Corona Mountain. Instead, I view Sonic solely on a situation similarly to the Lost Levels. It looks like Sonic, but feels nothing like what you'd expect from the little blue Goku wannabe. At the same time, like with the Lost Levels, I'm glad this game is a thing. It kinda stands out among the rest of the catalog for not putting such an emphasis on his speed. I know that's supposed to be the main marketing point of a Sonic game, but when those Mach speed sections are such an obvious lowlight due to his lack of mobility during jumps, it makes me quite grateful those stages are few and far between. The way all these hedgehogs move around the game varies greatly, and I'm all for it. I love when Sonic has loads of open space to run freely at his own pace, taking all the fresh air. Hey, it's in his theme song, Never Fear the Fall, you know? Yeah, this always seems to happen. I start playing in White Acropolis but end up auditioning for the Vancouver Olympics. And I'm aware his snowboarding section didn't go as well as it could have, so here's Shadow channeling his ATV off-road fury and mowing down badniks aplenty in a quad. And if that wasn't enough for you, here he is jet skiing across Kingdom Valley. Once again, the testament to how much I love Shadow in this game, and it was nice to revisit the abandoned royal dwelling in Shadow Generations. But here's the thing, I can't stop attributing Kingdom Valley to Silver instead. I've already mentioned his campaign feeling like one giant puzzle game, but they really outdid themselves with his segment here. I can't tell you how much time I spent exploring the map and seeing what all I could do with his psychic powers. In past videos, I've talked about my penchant for combing across especially vast video game stages, so getting such an opportunity in a Sonic game was a very pleasant surprise. I guess you could view the overall lack of going fast as a byproduct of this game fitting the mold of the adventure titles, but you can tell Sonic Team wanted to shift the tone into something more serious. I mean, the back of the game cover says it all. This time, speed won't be enough. It sure won't be there to save anybody when you finally unlock the infamous last episode. You know, the move, the kiss, blown away. I said it all so you don't have to. And how convenient enough that when a reborn Solaris destroys time itself, he leaves the majority of Sonic's friends intact where the Soliana Castle Town once stood. Thus leads to probably my favorite Sonic stage of all time, and I'm kinda perplexed I don't hear more of you bringing it up. This is how I've always imagined how the Prankster Comets in Mario Galaxy should have gone. You know how some of those stages would restrict you to a time limit, others would take away most of your health, and still more made the bad guys move faster? The end of the world level is basically all of those handicaps rolled into one, all packed into a 7-way manhunt for the Chaos Emeralds spanning all of Soliana as reality falls apart on itself. First of all, there is no question that this is the stuff of nightmares. It's actually kinda terrifying watching those familiar areas grow a deep and ominous shade of purple as the light gets sucked out of everything. And that's before you get into the aforementioned black hole type rifts that pop up out of nowhere, and they only expand and grow in numbers as time quickly runs dry. You never know when you're at the wrong place at the wrong time until it's too late. It really makes me reconsider that these guys are potentially looking Oblivion right in the eye, and they pretty much have one shot to escape. I guess the only thing missing from this stage is a bad ending cutscene that might play out if you were to get a game over here. At least twice, maybe 3 times I could expect to be greeted with a haunting shot of Solaris' fury wiping the good guys out of existence or something, because this is an actually difficult level. And yet as much as I struggled here, I do appreciate that collecting all 7 Chaos Emeralds is not free, which brings me back to my previous point of the many boss battles feeling like actual tense showdowns. After all, it's foreboding enough that the legendary Cobalt Champion has just been incapacitated, but when you add in Solaris literally swallowing up all the timelines, effectively reducing the universe to nothing, it's a wonder how the Amigos don't buckle under pressure. You know what really helps to drive home the intimidating feel eminent through this adventure? The music. I love the soundtrack for 06. There's not much to get the heart pumping faster than booting up to the title screen and having the orchestral section of His World rock you like a hurricane. You pretty much see the carefree maverick sentiment of His World in action when he's interrupting the snazzy performance in the opening and I guess during his day out with the princess. Silver's theme provides a very interesting contrast to the flaming ghost town in which the futuristic hedgehog is trapped. It certainly gives off the vibe of that high-class utopia he yearns for if not for the flames being unleashed all those years ago. I noticed the adventure games had a bit of a habit of reusing the same character themes as background music during the many cutscenes. That's no longer the case for Sonic's ambitious leap into the Xbox 360 and PS3, putting together a masterpiece of Sonic proportions that truly feels like a movie. It's almost like they got the legendary Hans Zimmer to arrange such hits as Memphis, Tennessee's Resurrection, All Around Me Are Familiar Faces, Forever Spinning the Hamster Wheel of Futility, There's No Way You Can Hear Me Since You're Out Cold But Seriously I Beg of You Do Not Cry One Tear or Else, and Oh Hey Guys, Good to See You Again, Oh Wait That's Right We Got Played Like James Hetfield's ESP Snakebite on Master of Puppets. It makes me think of when Mario Galaxy employed an entire orchestra in its effort to go all out on presentation. The end result is a masterclass in musical evolution that at least gave me another thing to enjoy about one of the games I've ever played. But you know what's funny? Sonic 06 has seen quite the boom in popularity in recent years. Despite the game's blatantly unfinished state, I've seen people all over the interweb cite the same points I just made as highlights. Are the bangin' tunes, interesting bosses, and ambitious campaign enough to make the overall experience enjoyable? Of course not. It reminds me a lot of the agonizing content that plagues the post-Bowser battle journey in Super Mario Sunshine, in which you could probably point to rushed development as an answer to why it came to be that way. You know how I previously suggested a remake from Mario's Messy Marathon, perhaps given more time to cook? So it's very reasonable to infer that the infamous Sonic game would benefit hugely from a remake. Bonus points if you could play it on modern hardware without relying on emulation. It's amazing what loads of time on one's hands, the advancement of gaming hardware, and especially the sheer will of the fans can do for a game's reputation. And it goes so much further than cutting all the loading time to a fraction of what it once was. 2 major projects come to mind here. The first is Sonic Project 06. Led by Chaos X, this is an actual remake from the ground up, and it really brings a slew of improvements on the gameplay front. Sonic himself is now a dream to run fast with, even in the Mach speed sections because he can finally control his movement during a jump. I remember the camera constantly suffering from Mario 64 syndrome back on the PS3, but thank heavens it's so much more manageable in this fan remake. And it runs natively on PC, which is good. There are still massive updates on the way yet, not including the infamous time-traveling princess rescuing narrative, of course, so while the jury's out on whether Project 06 can truly replace your dusty Xbox 360 disc, there is a fan mod that aims to redefine the entire Sonic 06 experience, and that's the Legacy of Solaris. Imagine applying one giant Final Horizon type update to a game that'll be 20 years old soon. It's a reworking of the original, adding its fair share of patches, bug fixes, and gameplay enhancements. Its biggest draw is offering a more complete version of 06. You know how the three hedgehogs each have their amigos that tag with them in each of their episodes? Now you can literally explore the amigo sides of the story. Tails, Amy, Omega, Rouge, Knuckles, and even Blaze all have their own campaigns that coincide with the escapades of our S-Cats. Legacy of Solaris is like a love letter to those who have played the original Disaster Piece. Both it and 06 have honestly made me forget about most of the pain I went through playing it for the first time. In rewriting the much maligned Legacy of 06, these incredible fan projects highlight Sonic the Hedgehog's unquestionable status as a video game icon, which was made even more apparent just last month when Sonic Unleashed came out of nowhere with its long-awaited PC port. Enter Unleashed Recompiled, another fan project that literally reverse-engineered an entire Xbox 360 game plus all the DLC. Yeah, I couldn't believe it either. As if it wasn't enough for two monumental task forces to try to fix the glitch from 2 years before, now all of a sudden I have two ways to play what's considered probably the best game in the Boost era on today's hardware. If you remember, my time with Unleashed all those years ago merely involved getting stuck midway through the forgotten PS2 version, but now I reckon I have no excuse not to play it at this point. If that's something you'd like to see me play on this channel, then let me know by giving me your thumbs. No, really, detach them from your hands and stick them onto the webpage. If you made it this far into the video, sound off in the comments what you'd like to see me talk about next year. I think I'll have already put up my correct Galaxy Hardest Top 10 by then, so that's probably out of the picture. Aside from all that, feel free to do what you always do at the end here. But before you go, I want to try something. Hit the subscribe button! Let me know if that did anything, alright? See ya.
That was incredible!